If you own a Nintendo Switch and you love exploring dark, interconnected worlds with tight combat and hidden secrets around every corner, this list is for you. These are the 15 best Metroidvania games you can play right now. Let's get into it. Ender Lilies is a dark fantasy Metroidvania where you play as Lily, a young girl who wakes up alone in a ruined kingdom called Land's End. Everything has been corrupted by a deadly rain that turns living things into monsters. Lily can't fight on her own, but she can purify the spirits of fallen knights and use them as her weapons. That's the core mechanic. You collect defeated bosses and equip them as active abilities, mixing and matching different spirits to build your own combat style. Some spirits slash, some throw projectiles, some deal AoE damage. The boss fights themselves are well designed and satisfying to crack. The world is interconnected and filled with hidden rooms, optional areas, and lore fragments that slowly build the story through item descriptions and brief visions. It's a pretty melancholy game. The atmosphere is heavy, the environments are beautiful in a decayed kind of way, and the music is incredibly fitting. Mio is one of the newest entries on this list, launching in January 2026, and it already made a strong impression. You play as Mio, a small robot who wakes up alone on a massive drifting spaceship called the Vessel, a ship originally built to carry humans to a place called the Promised Land. The humans are gone. The AI caretakers known as the Pearls have stopped functioning, and the ship is slowly being consumed by wild vegetation and rogue machines. Your job is to explore this decaying place, repair damaged robots, recover lost memories, and figure out what happened. The gameplay uses a multi-tool system. You get abilities like wall climbing, a grappling hook, and gliding that open up new areas as you progress. Combat is precision-based and flows well once you get the rhythm down. The world is seamless, meaning no loading between rooms, which makes exploration feel natural. Nine Souls is not your typical Metroidvania. It's set in a retro-futuristic world mixing ancient Chinese mythology with sci-fi, and the result is something genuinely unlike anything else in the genre. You play as Yi, a hunter who wakes up after a long sleep and sets out on a revenge mission. The world is called New Kunlun, a sealed dome ruled by 9 immortal beings, and Yi is going to take them down one by one. The combat here is the centerpiece. It's a parry-focused system inspired by Sekiro. You deflect attacks, charge up a technique called Tai Chi, and then unleash it to deal massive damage. It rewards patience and pattern recognition over button mashing. Miss your parry windows and you'll get destroyed. Land them consistently and fights feel incredible. Outside of combat, exploration is solid, with the usual Metroidvania progression of unlocking abilities that open new paths. The boss fights are some of the best in the genre, creative, intense, and memorable. Salt and Sanctuary is basically a 2D Dark Souls. That's not an exaggeration. It's designed by people who love From Software games and wanted to bring that experience to a side-scrolling format. You're a sailor who washes ashore on a cursed island, full of monsters, undead, and things far worse. The island is your dungeon, and you explore it in classic Metroidvania fashion, finding shortcuts, unlocking doors, and slowly mapping out a world that doesn't give you much guidance. The progression system is lifted straight from RPGs. You build your character by choosing from classes at the start and then allocating stats as you level up, with builds ranging from strength warriors to dex-based fighters to mages and hybrids. Combat is deliberate and punishing. Stamina management matters, enemies hit hard. Death sends you back to your last sanctuary and drops your salt, which is the currency you use to level up, just like Souls.
Rotten Walker's ears. Nice. Can I get down through here? Nope. Pouch of...
Dead Cells is a roguelite Metroidvania, meaning every run is different. You play as a failed experiment, waking up in a dungeon over and over again, and each time you die, you start fresh, but you keep certain permanent upgrades that slowly make you stronger. The combat is fast, fluid, and satisfying from the first minute. You pick up weapons as you go. Swords, shields, bows, traps, grenades, and the variety is enormous. Weapons have different synergies, and the game rewards you for building around those combinations. The levels themselves are randomly generated with fixed biomes, so the structure of each run stays recognizable, while the layouts and enemy placements change. There's a light Metroidvania element where you unlock permanent abilities that let you access new areas and routes. The difficulty scales in a way that lets you unlock harder modes as you beat the game, called boss cells, so there's a massive amount of progression if you want to push into the deep end. Bow is a lighter, more joyful Metroidvania compared to most on this list, but don't mistake that for easy. You play as Bow, a small deity figure exploring a world inspired by Japanese folklore and mythology. And the visual style is stunning, with hand-painted environments that look like moving woodblock prints. The gameplay revolves around movement above everything else. Bow uses a staff to bounce off enemies and hazards, chain together aerial sequences, and reach difficult platforms. It feels similar to how Ori handles traversal, very fluid, very kinetic. As you progress, you unlock new abilities that feed into both combat and exploration, and the world opens up in classic Metroidvania fashion. The difficulty here comes from precision platforming challenges and boss fights that test your movement skills, rather than raw combat stats. The story is quiet and told more through the world and its characters than heavy exposition. The messenger starts as one thing and reveals itself to be something completely different partway through. And it's one of the best surprises the genre has had in years. It begins as an action platformer inspired by classic Ninja Gaiden, tight, linear levels, fast combat, satisfying movement. You play as a ninja on a mission to deliver a scroll that could save his clan. The first half plays like a classic action game, and it's excellent on its own. Then, the game shifts. The structure opens up into a full Metroidvania with a connected world, backtracking, ability upgrades, and secrets tucked everywhere. The mechanic that makes it unique is a time-shifting system. You can jump between two different art styles representing the past and present, and the world changes around you depending on which one you're in. Pathways that are blocked in one era might be open in the other. On top of that, the writing and dialogue are genuinely funny. Axiom Verge 2 takes the series in a different direction from the first game. Where the original was a direct love letter to Super Metroid, the sequel is its own thing, slower, more mysterious, and built around a very different kind of exploration. You play as Indira, a tech billionaire who travels to Antarctica to find her missing daughter, only to end up in a completely different reality, a broken, alien world. The gameplay introduces a drone that you control separately from Indira herself. You send it into tight spaces, hack enemies, and solve puzzles that require switching between the two characters. Indira herself uses a grappling hook and a melee weapon rather than traditional guns, which changes the feel of combat significantly. It's a less combat-heavy game overall. The focus is more on exploration and environmental puzzles. The world is large, interconnected, and dense with secrets. Animal Well is a puzzle-focused Metroidvania that works completely differently from everything else on this list. You play as a small blob creature navigating a mysterious underground world filled with animals, traps, and strange contraptions. There's no combat in the traditional sense. Instead, you collect items like a bubble wand, a yo-yo, and a disc, and you use them to interact with the environment and solve puzzles. The world is dense with secrets layered on top of secrets. On your first run, you'll discover things that feel significant. On a second or third run, or after seeing what the community has found, you'll realize how deep the rabbit hole goes. The developer hid multiple layers of puzzles and references that require community collaboration to fully unravel. Visually, it runs in a 4-color palette with incredible pixel art that feels like it belongs in a different era. The atmosphere is eerie without being aggressive. It's curious and strange. Hollow Knight is the benchmark for the modern Metroidvania. It's the game people think of when the genre comes up, and for good reason. You play as the Knight, a small bug warrior who descends into the ruins of an ancient underground kingdom called Hallownest. The kingdom was once great. Now it's collapsed, infected, and filled with hostile creatures. You explore, fight, and slowly piece together what happened. The world is massive, genuinely massive, with biomes that each have their own look, enemies, music, and story. Movement builds gradually. You start with basic movement and slowly add a dash, wall jumps, pogo attacks, and more. The nail combat is simple but deep. The charm system lets you customize your build by equipping different passive abilities that change how you play. The boss fights range from manageable to brutally challenging, and the optional ones push difficulty into serious territory. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Nobody expected this one to be as good as it turned out. Ubisoft took the Prince of Persia name, built a brand new Metroidvania around it, and delivered one of the best games in the genre in recent years. You play as Sargon, a young warrior from an elite squad called the Immortals, who enters the cursed mountain of Kaf to rescue a kidnapped prince. Time and reality are fractured throughout the mountain, and that feeds directly into the mechanics. You unlock time-based powers as you progress: a dash through time, the ability to pin a point in space and teleport back to it, and others that affect both combat and traversal. The combat is fast and responsive with a tight parry system. The level design is some of the best the genre has seen, with puzzles that use your time powers in creative ways that constantly surprise you.
Setting up an echo of Sargon to which you can teleport back, or even capturing elements in a pocket dimension are but a few examples of how
Ori and the Will of the Wisps is one of the most beautiful games ever made. And underneath that beauty is a Metroidvania with tight platforming, emotional storytelling, and some of the most satisfying movement in the genre. You play as Ori, a spirit creature, exploring a new forest called Naiwen after their home was damaged. The story is told without heavy exposition and hits emotionally harder than you might expect. The movement is the core experience. Ori dashes, double jumps, air dashes, uses a projectile to boost through the air, and eventually moves with a fluidity that feels genuinely amazing to control. Combat was significantly improved from the first game. You now have melee attacks and ranged abilities that you level up through a skill tree, and fights feel active and engaging. The level design pushes your movement skills in creative ways without being frustrating. The music by Gareth Coker is exceptional throughout. Blasphemous 2 takes everything the first game did and refines it into a tighter, more polished experience. The setting is the same dark religious world of Custodia, a place where faith has become something grotesque, where miracles are horrifying, and where the imagery draws from Spanish Catholic iconography mixed with brutal body horror. You play as the Penitent One, a silent warrior who has returned to face a new threat, the birth of a miraculous infant whose coming signals catastrophe. The gameplay opens up immediately compared to the first game. You start with 3 different weapons, a rapier, heavy mace, and a pair of twin sensors, and you switch between them freely, each one tied to different traversal abilities and combat approaches. The combat is deliberate and satisfying, with parries, executions, and rosary beads that grant passive upgrades. Boss designs are intricate and iconic. The game that put Moon Studios on the map. Ori and the Blind Forest came out in 2015, and it still holds up completely. You play as Ori, a spirit separated from the guardian tree Sane, exploring a dying forest to save it from darkness. The game builds its movement gradually: wall jumps, bash abilities that redirect projectiles and enemies, charge jumps, and the way these tools combine creates some of the most memorable platforming sequences in gaming. There are 3 major escape sequences in the game that act as timed chase levels, where you use everything you've learned under pressure. They're intense and incredibly well designed. The art direction is stunning: soft light, hand-painted environments, a world that looks alive. The Definitive Edition adds new areas, abilities, and story content that flesh out the world. This is the sequel to Hollow Knight, and instead of controlling the knight, you play as Hornet, the needle-wielding warrior from the first game. She's been captured and taken to a new kingdom called Farloom, a land ruled by Silk and Song. She doesn't know why she's there. She climbs toward the citadel at the peak of the kingdom to find answers. Farloom is alive in a way Hollow Nest wasn't. It has towns, NPCs, quests, and a world that breathes. The gameplay is faster and more aggressive than Hollow Knight. Hornet's movement is exceptional. She bounces off enemies, dashes through attacks, sets silk traps, and throws needles. The Silk Gauge replaces Soul from the first game and feeds both your healing and your most powerful attacks, so resource management stays strategic. A new crest and tool system replaces charms. You mix different crests that change your abilities and basic attacks, creating highly personalized builds. The boss fights are exceptional across the board. That's the list. 15 games, all worth your time. Whether you want the emotional journey of Ori, the brutal precision of 9 Souls, or the absolute masterpiece that is Silksong, your Switch library just got a serious upgrade. Drop your personal favorite in the comments and subscribe for more.